The stars had been quiet for 2,000 years. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council in the year 2147, back when Earth was still recovering from its last great war. The alien ships had appeared in the sky without warning. They gave humanity a simple choice: join the Council and live under their rules, or refuse and face destruction. Humanity chose to live. Daniel Carter remembered learning about those days in school. His grandmother used to tell him stories about how humans once built weapons that could break planets. She told him about soldiers who fought in mud and blood, about generals who commanded millions. But those were just stories now. The Council had made humanity give up its weapons. They had made humanity promise to never fight again. And for 2,000 years, humanity had kept that promise. Daniel was an admiral now, but the title meant nothing. He wore a fancy uniform and attended meetings where aliens talked about trade routes and mining rights. He shook hands with creatures that had too many eyes or not enough limbs. He smiled and nodded and pretended that his job mattered. But he was just a symbol, a reminder that humanity was tame and peaceful and no threat to anyone. His daughter Emma was 9 years old. She had her mother's brown eyes and her father's stubborn chin. She loved to read books about space explorers and dream about visiting distant worlds. 3 months ago, Daniel had sent her to the Galactic Youth Academy on Velith Prime. It was a great honor. Children from hundreds of different species studied there together. They learned about each other's cultures and formed friendships that would last their whole lives. Daniel missed her every day, but he told himself it was for the best. Emma would grow up understanding the galaxy in ways he never could. She would make friends with aliens and learn to see the universe through their eyes. She would be a bridge between worlds. He was sitting in his office on Luna Base when the message arrived. It was from the Council, marked with the highest priority seal. Daniel opened it expecting some new diplomatic crisis. Some argument about border territories or resource allocation. The usual boring matters that filled his days. The message was short. All human children on Velith Prime had been taken into protective custody. They would be redistributed to various colony worlds for cultural integration. This was being done for their own good. Humanity was expanding too fast. Human children needed to learn proper values. The Council had voted on the matter, and the decision was final. Daniel read the message 3 times. His hands began to shake. He read it again. The words did not change. They had taken his daughter. They had taken all of them. 300 human children, stolen from their beds in the middle of the night. And the Council called it protective custody. He tried to call Velith Prime. The communication channels were blocked. He tried to contact the human ambassador. No response. He tried every frequency he knew, every back channel, every emergency line. Nothing. The Council had cut humanity off from its own children. Daniel stood up from his desk. He walked to the window and looked out at the Earth hanging in the black sky. It looked so small from here, so fragile. For 2,000 years, humanity had accepted its place in the galaxy. They had swallowed their pride and followed the rules. They had taught their children to be peaceful, to be kind, to trust their alien neighbors. And this was how the galaxy repaid them. The Volanthi were behind this. Daniel knew it without being told. The insectoid species had always hated humanity. They complained that humans bred too fast, spread too far, talked too loud. High Speaker Zethkaran had given speeches about the human problem for decades. He called humans a plague that needed to be controlled. Now they were taking human children and calling it education. They were going to scatter those children across alien worlds. They were going to raise them to be ashamed of being human. They were going to erase everything that made them who they were. Daniel thought about Emma. He thought about her smile and her laugh and the way she always asked too many questions. He thought about her growing up alone on some alien world, surrounded by creatures who saw her as a problem to be fixed. He thought about her forgetting her own language, her own history, her own family. Something changed inside Daniel Carter in that moment. Something old and cold and very patient woke up in his heart. He did not scream or cry or throw things. He simply stood at the window and let the anger settle into his bones like ice. His communicator buzzed. It was a message from someone he had never met. A woman named Lisa Monroe. She said she was a historian. She said she had been waiting for this day for a very long time. She gave him coordinates in the Nevada desert and told him to come alone. Daniel did not ask questions. He took the first shuttle to Earth. The coordinates led him to an old building in the middle of nowhere. The desert stretched out in every direction, empty and dead. Lisa Monroe was waiting for him at the door. She was an old woman with sharp eyes and steady hands. She looked at Daniel like she could see right through him. "They took my daughter," he said. Lisa nodded slowly. "I know. I've been watching the news feeds. The whole planet knows." She paused. "The whole planet is very quiet right now. Have you noticed that?" Daniel had noticed. The streets had been empty when he landed. The news channels were silent. It was like the entire human race was holding its breath. "What is this place?" he asked. Lisa smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had been carrying a secret for far too long. "This is where we kept the old ways," she said. "The council made us give up our weapons. They made us promise to be peaceful. But some of us remembered what we used to be. Some of us kept records, built things in secret, trained people where no one could see." She handed him a key card. "I've been waiting 2,000 years for someone to ask for this." I was starting to think the day would never come. Daniel took the key card. His hand was steady now. The ice in his heart had spread through his whole body, making everything clear and cold and simple. "Show me," he said. Lisa led him underground. And there, in the darkness beneath the desert, Daniel Carter saw what humanity had really been doing for the last 2,000 years. He saw the weapons. He saw the ships. He saw the soldiers, and he understood that the galaxy had made a terrible mistake. The elevator went down for a long time. Daniel counted the seconds in his head. 30, 60, 90. They were going deep underground, far deeper than any building should go. The walls changed from concrete to bare rock. The air grew cold and still. When the doors finally opened, Daniel stepped into a world he thought had died 2,000 years ago. The cavern stretched out before him like an underground city. Lights hung from the ceiling, casting a cold white glow over rows and rows of machines. He saw weapons first, not the small energy pistols that the Council allowed humans to carry. These were real weapons. Missiles with nuclear warheads. Railguns that could punch through starship armor. Bombs that could crack a planet in half. And beyond the weapons, he saw the ships. They hung in massive docking cradles, dark and silent, waiting for a war that everyone thought would never come. Daniel counted 12 of them just in this cavern. Each one was bigger than anything humanity was supposed to have. "How?" he whispered. Lisa walked beside him, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. "We started the day after we signed the treaty. A few engineers, a few soldiers, people who remembered what we gave up. They dug this place in secret, a little bit at a time. Their children continued the work, and their grandchildren, and so on for 2,000 years." She stopped in front of a massive console covered in buttons and screens. "The Council inspects our shipyards every 10 years. They scan our satellites and monitor our communications. They think they know everything about us, but they only know what we let them see." Daniel stared at the ships. "How many?" 2,000, scattered across hidden bases on the Moon, Mars, and the asteroid belt. We have 3 million trained soldiers living normal lives on Earth and the colonies. We have weapons factories hidden inside cargo haulers. We have spy networks in every major council species. Lisa looked at him with those sharp old eyes. We never forgot what we were, Admiral. We just learned to be patient. A door opened at the far end of the cavern. A man walked toward them. He was young, maybe 30, with short brown hair and the kind of calm face that came from years of training. He wore simple clothes, but he moved like a soldier. Admiral Carter, the man said. My name is Kevin Brooks. I'm the commander of this facility. Daniel blinked. You're a freighter captain. I've seen your name in the shipping reports. Kevin smiled. That's my cover. I've been running cargo between the outer colonies for 15 years. It's good work for moving things the council shouldn't see. He gestured to the ships behind him. These are mine. They're old, but we've kept them ready. They can fly within the hour. Daniel felt dizzy. Everything he thought he knew about his own species was wrong. For his whole life, he had believed that humanity was peaceful, that they had given up war forever, that the old stories about human soldiers were just legends from a barbaric past. But the old stories were true, and humanity had been preparing for this day all along. There are others like this facility? Daniel asked. Dozens, Lisa said. All over human space. We call ourselves the Keepers. We've been passing down the old knowledge from generation to generation. Combat tactics, weapons engineering, ship design. Everything the council made us forget, we kept alive in secret. Kevin handed Daniel a tablet. Right now, Keeper cells all over the solar system are activating. Soldiers are leaving their civilian jobs and reporting to hidden bases. Engineers are powering up the weapon factories. By tomorrow morning, we'll have a real military again. Not the toy fleet that the council lets us keep. A real one. Daniel looked at the tablet. It showed a map of human space with thousands of green dots lighting up one by one. Each dot was a Keeper cell coming online. Each dot was hundreds or thousands of people who had spent their whole lives waiting for this moment. Why? Daniel asked. Why did you do all this? We've been at peace for 2,000 years. We could have stayed at peace forever. Lisa shook her head. No, we couldn't. The council never saw us as equals, Admiral. They saw us as animals that needed to be tamed. They tolerated us as long as we were useful. But sooner or later, they were going to turn on us. We always knew that. We just didn't know when. She pointed to the weapons around them. This was our insurance policy. Our hope was that we would never need to use it. That humanity would live in peace until the stars burned out. But we're not that lucky. The Volanti decided that our children were a problem to be solved. And now they're going to learn what happens when you threaten human children. Daniel thought about Emma. He thought about her scared and alone on some alien ship, surrounded by creatures that saw her as a pest to be controlled. He thought about what the Volanti were going to do to her mind, how they were going to teach her to hate herself, to be ashamed of being human. The ice in his heart grew colder. What do you need me to do? He asked. Kevin and Lisa exchanged a look. Then Kevin spoke. We have weapons. We have ships. We have soldiers. What we don't have is a leader. Someone the council knows. Someone they'll have to take seriously. He looked at Daniel with steady eyes. You're an admiral. You've spent 40 years building relationships with council species. When you speak, they'll listen. And what am I supposed to say? Lisa smiled that cold smile again. You're going to give them one chance. One chance to return our children safe and unharmed. If they refuse, you're going to show them what humanity was like before we learned to be polite. Daniel looked around at the weapons and ships and soldiers emerging from the shadows. He thought about his peaceful career, his diplomatic skills, His belief in cooperation between species. Then he thought about his daughter. "Get me a uniform," he said. "A real one. And get me a ship. Something fast. I need to reach the council station before they have time to think." Kevin nodded. "Already done. We've been planning this for 20 years. We were just waiting for someone to give the order." Within 6 hours, Daniel Carter was in space. Behind him, across all of human civilization, the lights were going on in places that had been dark for 2,000 years. Soldiers put on armor they had only worn in training. Pilots climbed into cockpits they had only seen in simulations. Generals dusted off battle plans their great-grandparents had written. Humanity was waking up. And the galaxy was not ready. The council chamber was the largest room in the galaxy. It sat at the heart of Veloth Prime, a massive dome built to hold representatives from all 847 member species. The ceiling showed the stars themselves, projected in perfect detail so that everyone could see the galaxy they shared. The floor was arranged in rising circles, each species sitting in its designated place according to when it had joined the council. Humanity's section was near the outer edge. In the cheap seats where the young species sat, Daniel Carter stood there now, wearing his old uniform. Not the fancy dress clothes of a ceremonial admiral. The real uniform, the one that soldiers wore into battle. It was dark gray and simple, with no decorations except the flag of Earth on his shoulder. The chamber was full. Word had spread fast about what happened on Veloth Prime. Species that hadn't attended a council meeting in centuries had sent representatives. Everyone wanted to see what the humans would do. High Speaker Zethkaran stood at the center of the chamber. He was tall for a Volanti, nearly 3 meters of hard black shell and clicking mandibles. His 4 eyes swept across the assembly with obvious satisfaction. He had won. The vote had passed. The human children were already being transported to Volanti colonies. In a generation, they would be properly civilized. The human problem would solve itself. "The council recognizes the human representative," Zethkaran said. His translator turned the clicks and whistles of his voice into flat, mechanical words. "You may speak." Daniel walked to the speaking platform at the center of the chamber. Every eye in the room followed him. He stood alone in that vast space, surrounded by species that had traveled between stars when humans were still living in caves. 2 days ago, Daniel said, agents of the Volanti Dominion entered the Galactic Youth Academy on this very station. They took 300 human children from their beds. They put them on transport ships. They are now taking those children to Volanti colonies, where they will be raised as Volanti citizens. Whispers rippled through the chamber. Many species had not heard the details. They knew only that something had happened with the humans. The council voted to approve this action, Daniel continued. 416 species voted yes. 34 voted no. 12 abstained. He paused. "I have the names of every species that supported this motion. I have memorized them." Zethkaran clicked his mandibles in amusement. The vote was legal. The children are being given a proper education. Humanity should be grateful. Your species breeds without control. You spread across the stars like insects. This is a kindness we offer you. Daniel did not raise his voice. He did not show anger. He spoke calmly, clearly, like he was discussing the weather. "I have a daughter. Her name is Emma. She is 9 years old. She likes to read books and ask questions. 3 days ago, I kissed her goodbye and told her I would see her soon." He looked directly at Zethkaran. "Now she is on a Volanti ship, being taken to a world where she will be taught to hate herself. Where she will be told that being human is a disease that needs to be cured." The chamber was silent now. Even the translator devices seemed to hold their breath. "You call this a kindness?" Daniel said. "You call this education. Let me tell you what humans call it. We call it kidnapping. We call it an act of war." Zeth Karan laughed. It was an ugly sound, like bones breaking. War? Humans do not make war. You gave up that right 2,000 years ago. You have no weapons. You have no soldiers. You are merchants and traders and diplomats. What will you do? Talk us to death. Daniel reached up and removed the diplomatic sash from his shoulder. It was a strip of blue cloth that marked him as a protected representative under council law. Anyone wearing that sash could not be harmed without bringing the full weight of the council down on the attacker. He let it fall to the floor. "This is your only warning," Daniel said. "You have 48 hours to return every human child to their families. Every single one unharmed. If you do not, we will come and take them back. And we will not stop until every species that voted for this motion understands why our ancestors called themselves the apex predators of Earth." Zethkaran stepped forward, his mandibles clicking with rage. "You dare threaten the Volanthi Dominion? You dare threaten the Council? We have fleets that could burn your worlds to ash. We have weapons that could crack your little planet in half. What could you possibly do to us?" Daniel smiled. It was the same cold smile that Lisa Monroe had worn in the desert. "You've been watching us for 2,000 years, he said. "You thought you knew us. You read our public records and scanned our ships and counted our weapons. You saw a peaceful species that had forgotten how to fight." He touched a button on his wrist. Behind him, the star map on the ceiling changed. It zoomed in on Earth and the Moon. At first, there was nothing unusual. Just a familiar blue planet and its gray companion. Then the ships appeared. They rose from the dark side of the moon like ghosts coming back from the dead. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. They were not cargo haulers or passenger liners. They were warships, real warships, with weapon arrays that glowed with barely contained power. They moved into formation around Earth, a ring of steel and fire that had been hidden for 2,000 years. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives screamed and shouted. Translators failed to keep up with the flood of languages. Zethkaran stumbled backward, his four eyes wide with shock. Daniel let them watch for a long moment. Then he spoke again. "You should have been reading our history," he said. "You should have learned what we did to each other before you found us. The wars we fought, the weapons we built, the things we were willing to do to protect our own." He turned and walked toward the exit. 48 hours. Not 1 minute more. He did not look back. Behind him, the council descended into panic. The Volanthi were screaming demands for immediate military response. The Kovathi were calling for emergency negotiations. A dozen other species were already fleeing to their ships, trying to get away before the humans attacked. And above them all, on the ceiling, the human fleet continued to grow. 2,000 warships now, with more arriving every minute. They hung around Earth like a crown of thorns, silent and waiting. Humanity had spent 2,000 years learning patience. Now they were going to teach the galaxy what that patience had cost. The Volanthi did not believe the warning. They had ruled their 17 star systems for 10,000 years. They had conquered a dozen species. They had weapons that could destroy planets and fleets that blotted out the stars. The idea that humanity, peaceful little humanity, could threaten them was a joke. Zethkaran ordered his fleet to attack. The first battle happened at the edge of human space. Near a small mining station called New Hope, the Volanthi sent 50 warships. More than enough to destroy any human resistance. Their captains were confident. Humans did not know how to fight. This would be a simple lesson in power. The human fleet was waiting for them. Captain Hannah Price commanded the first strike force. She was 42 years old, with gray hair and calm eyes. She had spent her whole life training for this day. Her grandmother had been a soldier in the old days, before the council. Her mother had been a keeper, maintaining the hidden weapons. And now Hannah was going to use those weapons for the first time in 2,000 years. Her ship was called the Grey Wolf. It was smaller than the Volanthi cruisers, but faster and more agile. More importantly, it carried weapons that the Council had banned as barbaric 3 millennia ago. Kinetic weapons. Simple metal rods accelerated to incredible speeds. No fancy energy shields. No complicated targeting systems. Just physics, pure and simple. The Volanthi opened fire first. Their plasma cannons lit up the darkness, sending bolts of superheated energy across the void. The human ships dodged and weaved, moving in patterns that the Volanthi computers could not predict. Then the humans fired back. The kinetic rounds were invisible. They moved too fast for sensors to track. The first Volanthi ship exploded without warning, torn apart by a rod of tungsten that punched through its shields like they were not there. The second ship followed a heartbeat later. Then the third. The Volanthi had never faced kinetic weapons. Their shields were designed to stop energy attacks. Against a simple metal projectile moving at a fraction of the speed of light, they were useless. The battle lasted 7 minutes. 43 Volanthi ships were destroyed. 7 escaped, fleeing back to Volanthi space with reports that the Council refused to believe. Humanity had not lost a single vessel. Across the galaxy, similar battles played out. The Volanthi sent fleets to human colonies. They found those colonies defended by weapons they did not understand. Railguns hidden in asteroids. Mines that launched themselves at passing ships. Missiles that carried nuclear warheads. A technology so primitive that the Council had forgotten it existed. Humanity fought dirty. They did not line up their ships for honorable battle. They ambushed and retreated, hit and ran, attacked supply lines and communication stations. They used tactics that no Council species had seen in thousands of years. The tactics of predators. Admiral Daniel Carter commanded the main fleet from the Reckoning, a massive warship that had been built in secret over 200 years. He watched the battle reports come in and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. The Volanthi were learning what it meant to threaten human children. But the war was not just about revenge. Every hour that passed, the children were being taken further into Volanthi space. Every hour, they were closer to being lost forever. Daniel needed to move fast. The rescue mission launched 3 days after the declaration. Special forces teams had been placed on Velith Prime years ago, living as maintenance workers, traders, and tourists. They had been waiting for activation codes that many of them never expected to receive. Samuel Grant received his code on a quiet morning. He was eating breakfast in a small cafe near the detention center, pretending to read a news feed. The message was 3 words: green light active. He put down his coffee, paid his bill, and walked outside. Across the station, 19 other agents were doing the same thing. They had trained for this mission in virtual simulations for years. They knew every corridor, every guard post, every security system. The Volanthi guards never saw them coming. Samuel moved through the detention center like a ghost. The Volanthi were not used to ground combat. Their soldiers were trained for ship-to-ship battles and ceremonial duties. They did not know how to deal with enemies who could hide in shadows and strike without warning. In 12 minutes, Samuel's team reached the holding area. 300 human children were there, scared and confused but unharmed. The Volanthi had not had time to begin their education program, yet Emma Carter was sitting in the corner, holding hands with a smaller boy. Her eyes were red from crying, but her jaw was set with determination. When Samuel appeared in the doorway, she did not scream or panic. She just looked at him and said, "Are you here to take us home?" Samuel nodded. "Your father sent me. He's waiting." The evacuation took 20 minutes. Human shuttles dropped from orbit, guided by agents who had hacked the station's defense systems. The children were loaded aboard and launched into space before the Volanthi even knew what was happening. Daniel Carter was waiting on the reckoning when the shuttles arrived. He watched the children emerge, one by one, into the safety of the ship. When Emma ran toward him, he dropped to his knees and held her so tight that she complained she could not breathe. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry I sent you there." Emma pulled back and looked at him with those serious brown eyes. "It's okay, Dad. I knew you would come." The war continued for 3 more months. The human fleet pushed into Volanthi space, destroying everything in its path. The species that had voted for the abduction watched in horror as their ally was torn apart. They sent messages begging for mercy, offering reparations, promising to never threaten humanity again. Humanity did not respond. The Volanthi home world fell on the 89th day. Human soldiers landed on the surface and marched through the capital city, passing crowds of terrified aliens who had never seen ground troops before. They did not burn or destroy. They simply occupied, taking control of every government building, every military base, every communication hub. Zethkaran was captured alive. He was brought before Daniel Carter in chains, his mandibles clicking with fear instead of arrogance. "What will you do to me?" he asked. Daniel looked at him for a long moment. He thought about Emma. He thought about the 300 children who had been stolen. He thought about what would have happened if humanity had not been prepared. "Nothing," he said. "You're going to live. You're going to watch what happens next. And you're going to remember that you did this. You brought this on your people. All because you thought our children were a problem to be solved." He walked away, leaving the high speaker alone with his guards. The war was almost over, but the galaxy would never be the same. The war ended on a cold morning in December, 4 months after it began. The Volanthi Dominion had been reduced from 17 star systems to 3. Their military was gone. Their economy was in ruins. Their people were hungry and afraid, wondering what the humans would do next. But the humans did not come to conquer. They came to rebuild. Rebecca Shaw was the Secretary General of the United Earth Government now. She had been a teacher before the war, a professor of interstellar relations at a university in Chicago. She had spent her career studying the council species, learning their languages and customs, trying to understand how different beings could live together in peace. Now she stood in the ruins of the council chamber, surrounded by representatives of 847 species, who were terrified of her. The chamber had been damaged during the final assault. Human soldiers had stormed the station to capture the council leadership, and the Volanthi guards had fought back desperately. Parts of the ceiling had collapsed. The beautiful star map was dark and cracked. Broken chairs and shattered screens littered the floor. Rebecca had ordered the room left this way for the peace conference. She wanted everyone to remember what had happened. She wanted them to see what humanity was capable of when pushed too far. 2,000 years ago, she began, humanity was given a choice. Join the council or die. We chose to join. We gave up our weapons. We gave up our independence. We taught our children to be peaceful, to trust the galaxy, to see aliens as friends instead of enemies. She paused and looked around the room. The alien representatives would not meet her eyes. We believed in the council. We believed in peace. We thought that if we followed the rules, if we were good citizens, if we proved ourselves worthy, we would be accepted. Her voice hardened. We were wrong. She walked to the center of the chamber, her boots crunching on broken glass. 416 species voted to take our children. 416 of you decided that our sons and daughters were problems to be solved. You did not ask us. You did not warn us. You simply took them like they were cargo instead of people. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Not a translator hummed. Not a creature breathed. "Let me tell you what we learned from this experience," Rebecca continued. "We learned that peace is not the same as safety. We learned that kindness can be mistaken for weakness. We learned that the galaxy does not respect species that cannot defend themselves." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Real paper, made from earth trees. She unfolded it slowly. "This is the new treaty. Every species in this room will sign it. Every species will obey it. And if any species ever threatens humanity again, we will return. And next time, we will not stop when the war is over." The terms were simple but absolute. Humanity would keep its weapons. No inspections. No limitations. No restrictions. Human citizens would be protected wherever they traveled. Anyone who harmed a human child would face the full weight of human military power. And there was one more article. The most important one. Article 7, Rebecca read aloud. "The protection of children of all species is hereby declared sacred and inviolable. No government, no council, no authority of any kind may separate children from their families without the consent of those families. Any species that violates this article will be removed from the council and treated as an enemy of all civilized peoples." She looked up from the paper. "We could have destroyed you. We could have burned your worlds and enslaved your peoples. We had the power. Some of our soldiers wanted to do exactly that." She thought of the angry young men and women who had begged for permission to strike harder, faster, more ruthlessly. She thought of the generals who had argued for total conquest. Humanity had learned patience in 2,000 years, but they had not forgotten rage. "We chose mercy instead," she said. "Not because we are weak, not because we are afraid, but because we remember what we almost became in the old days, before we learned to control our worst instincts." She set the paper down on a broken lectern. "We are giving you the same choice we were given. Sign this treaty and live in peace. Or refuse and learn what humanity does to its enemies." One by one, the representatives came forward to sign. The Volanthi went first, their new leader bowing low before Rebecca with trembling legs. Then the species that had voted for the abduction. Then the ones that had abstained. Even the 34 that had voted against signed, to show solidarity with the new order. When it was done, Rebecca walked out of the chamber without looking back. Human soldiers fell into step around her, their weapons gleaming in the dim light. Outside, Daniel Cotter was waiting. Emma sat beside him, reading a book on her tablet. She looked up when Rebecca approached and smiled. "Is it over?" she asked. Daniel nodded. "It's over, sweetheart." Emma looked thoughtful for a moment. "The other kids at school are scared of me now. They think humans are monsters." Rebecca knelt down beside her. "What do you think?" Emma considered the question with the seriousness that only a child can manage. "I think we're not monsters. But I think we could be, if we had to. If someone tried to hurt us again." She looked at her father. "Is that bad?" Daniel put his arm around her. "No, honey. It's just what we are. Humans can be kind and gentle and loving. We can build beautiful things and make amazing discoveries and create art that makes people cry. But we can also be dangerous. Very dangerous. And it's important that the galaxy knows both sides of us." They walked together to the shuttle bay, where a ship was waiting to take them home. Earth hung in the distance, blue and green and beautiful, surrounded by the ring of warships that would never be hidden again. Lisa Monroe was there too, looking out at the stars with those sharp old eyes. She was smiling, really smiling, for the first time in decades. "We did it," she said. "We kept the faith for 2,000 years, and it mattered." Daniel nodded. "Let's hope we never have to do it again." Lisa laughed softly. "Hope is good, Admiral. But preparation is better. We'll keep training, keep building, keep watching. She looked at Emma. And we'll make sure the next generation knows what we know. That piece is precious, but it must be defended. The shuttle lifted off and headed for Earth. Behind them, the galaxy was changing. Species that had once dismissed humanity were now sending diplomats and trade missions. Scientists were eager to study human history, human culture, human weapons. Everyone wanted to understand how a small species from an ordinary planet had hidden so much power for so long, and in homes across human space. Parents held their children a little tighter. They told them stories about the old days, about soldiers and warriors and the terrible prices of war. They taught them to be kind and peaceful and diplomatic, to seek understanding before conflict. But they also taught them the old truth, the one that humanity had learned in the caves and carried to the stars. The truth that the galaxy now understood: never threaten human children, because humanity will burn the universe to bring them home, and the stars themselves will remember the lesson.